Hello, good morning, and welcome to Trust TV's Daybreak, reaching you right here from the nation's capital. The best of starts is what we aim for your day, and I am Ibrahim Yusuf.
And my name is Martia Umar. Thank you for joining us this morning.
All right, let's go straight into the headlines on the hour. And Kanu Guba Pool, Abba Gida Gida not qualified to contest, APC petitions tribunal.
And on Kogi governorship poll, court nullifies APC's delegates list, orders fresh Congress. And
talking about security now, gunmen kill Imo cop returning from Easter holiday.
And now let's get into the details. The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja on Wednesday nullified the ward and local government congresses of the All Progressives Congress APC conducted for the purpose of nominating its candidate for the Kogi State governorship election billed for November 11. And the court, in a judgment that was delivered by Justice James Omotosho, held that the said congresses, which were held on February 7, were not conducted in compliance with the provisions of both the Electoral Act 2022 and APC's constitution. It therefore ordered the leadership of the party to conduct fresh ward and local government area congresses with strict adherence to Section 84 of the Electoral Act 2022 and Article 13 of the APC Constitution. The judgment followed a suit that was brought before the court by aggrieved members of the party led by Rilwan Okpanachi.
And still talking politics, the Kano State chapter of the All Progressives Congress has filed a petition before a Kano Governorship Election Petition Tribunal, challenging the Independent National Electoral Commission for declaring Abba Kabir Yusuf of the New Nigeria People's Party winner of the March 18th election. The petitioner, in a 5-volume petition, is alleging that Yusuf, popularly known as Abba Gida Gida, was not qualified to contest the election on the grounds that his name was not on the list of members of NNPP sent to INEC. However, the gubernatorial candidate of the APC, Nasir Yusuf Gawuna, was not joined as a party in the petition. The parties involved are the APC as the petitioner, while NNPP, Yusuf, and INEC are the first, second, and third respondents, respectively.
And now moving to Imo State, a police inspector identified as Augustine Ukegbu has been killed by some gunmen. The policeman was killed at the village at Umoshike Ogbo in Abo Mbise local government area of the state after celebrating Easter with his family. It was gathered that the inspector was kidnapped from his house upon his arrival from his base in Owerri and was later found dead in a bush along Umbutu in the local council. The source said that the cop was abducted at Abo Mbise around 11 p.m. on April 8 by the gunman in a Lexus Jeep.
All right, that's it for the headlines for this hour. Now it's time for us to take a look at some news reports. With less than 50 days to his swearing in, Kano residents are setting priorities for the newly elected governor of the state. Now, residents want the incoming government to focus attention on human capital development and are hopeful that the new government will live up to expectations. Idris Jibril reports.
Some are hailing as the triumph for the Nigeria's political powerhouse. But Kano State faces some of the same old problems, creating jobs and feeding its poor, as well as the more recent and more disturbing challenge, the high cost of living. At the moment, things are very expensive. If you go to the market to buy food items today, the price is different. If you go back tomorrow, the price will increase. Therefore, we need the incoming administration to focus on how they can be able to reduce the price of goods and services, how we can be able to buy food with the little amount of money that we have. Because if you didn't eat, you can't even go anywhere. You can't do anything. Now, on 29th May, the newly elected governor of the state will be sworn into office amidst increasing concern over the failure in education, healthcare, and several other areas of societal development. The major problem of our society now is health. If you are not well enough, you cannot even go out to look for what to eat. And nowadays, if you go to the hospital, before the doctors will even listen to you, it will be another problem. You will stay longer than necessary before you see a doctor that will attend to you. Sometimes if you take your wife, she may even die or delivered on the floor before any doctor will attend to her. So we want the incoming administration to provide free healthcare services for all the people of Kano State. Ibrahim Ahmad is a pensioner in Kano State who usually receives 30,000 naira monthly. But he says there are challenges itching over the Kano State Pension Board and hopes the new government will address it. I am a pensioner, and every month Ganduje is removing 10,000 naira from my 30,000 naira pension. So you can see how the things are going. And this is the situation. From the first day he became the governor of Kano State up till this moment, every month they are removing 10,000 naira from my pension. And you can see not only that, we have problem of water supply, problem of education, mosquito is everywhere, there is no roads, and we have refuse dump on the street everywhere you go. This is the problem we are having, and we want this government that is coming in to make sure that they address this problem. Lack of potable drinking water, electricity supply, high cost of living are some of the major issues Kano residents expect the incoming administration to address. Idris Jubrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
Now let's talk about election matters, and the 2023 elections have been followed by cancellation by some sections of people in the country. Now, stakeholders, however, believe that there's a bridging gap that made these sections or the election uncomfortable with the political process. Correspondent Abdullahi Abubakar tries to identify what will be a unifying factor in the aftermath of the 2023 general elections. His report.
The 2023 elections have come and gone, but not without challenges. They were expected before the polls by keen followers of the Nigerian political process. Some stakeholders in Lafia, Nasarawa State, said this was probably the worst experience the country has had in recent elections. Apart from being polarized on choice of political leaders, the stakeholders say the division along religious and ethnic lines are even more dicey.
In the past, we've had elections where candidates will come out to contest on issues that affect Nigeria and Nigerians. But this time around, almost everyone is guilty, because the candidates and the political parties came out to contest, except for the few ones, not on issues, but religion, ethnicity, or regionalism. And this is exactly what really formed the basis of almost all the candidates campaigning for their manifestos.
Speakers on the issues said the country at the moment needs unifying forces through the actions of all citizens so that the political system can move beyond the cycle of recriminations.
I must say that I think politicians also have their own faults in this line. In the past, we've had elections where candidates will come out to contest on issues that affect Nigeria and Nigerians. But this time around, almost everyone is guilty, because the candidates and the political parties came out to contest, except for the few ones, not on issues, but religion, ethnicity, or regionalism. And this is exactly what really formed the basis of almost all the candidates campaigning for their manifestos.
But most importantly, stakeholders believe law enforcement agencies should be more proactive in shutting down and prosecuting individuals and groups whose actions are capable of causing division in the society. Still talking politics, the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State has compared the actions of Governor Nyesom Wike in the aftermath of the 2023 elections to the 1972 Watergate scandal in the United States under President Richard Nixon. Spokesman of the All Progressives Congress in the state, Darlington Nwauju, made the comparison in Port Harcourt while analyzing the governor's recent media chat. The report.
The APC spokesperson says Governor Wike admitted to conniving with operatives of the Nigerian police to steal their documents. He also said Wike admitted that he and INEC and the police arrested 3 lawyers of the party to obtain the party's evidence of the electoral heist that took place in the state.
By this very public confession of Governor Wike, it is very clear that the laptops and other evidence is critical to the APC litigation and elections petitions tribunal were hacked into in order to steal information. This, to our mind, should be of very serious concern to Nigerians.
The APC's position is that the media chat has confirmed the fears of the peoples of Rivers State that Governor Wike actually positioned some loyalists of the PDP at INEC office and has been working in cahoots with them, which led to the attack of the APC governorship candidate, Tonye Cole.
We are fully aware that the so-called protesters stationed at the INEC Port Harcourt office are not there to prevent the smuggling in of results that were written anywhere, as the governor claimed in his media chat. We are rather aware that the protesters are there to give shield to the INEC officials who are still busy writing results to match the figures that were ridiculously announced on the 18th of March 2023 in favor of the PDP.
The dramatic conclusion of the APC spokesman is that what Governor Wike did by brandishing a flash drive purportedly containing details of the APC legal briefs is similar to 1972 Watergate scandal in the United States of America under President Richard Nixon. He therefore called on federal government and relevant stakeholders, security agencies to probe into political situation in Rivers State.
Now, the anti-drugs agency, NDLEA in Katsina, has intercepted a cache of codeine syrup and tramadol capsule worth about 15 million naira. Men and officers of the agency intercepted the drugs during the Easter break in Katsina. Abdullahi Amadi completes the report.
About 1,730 packs of codeine syrup valued at about 10 million naira was intercepted from one Muhammad Katsina, who claimed to have been conscripted into the business by his friend. The NDLEA boss in Katsina is not only concerned about the quantum of the drugs, but what would have been the effect on the people of the state if it had gone into the market.
These were made possible by the eagle eyes of the officers of the NDLEA Katsina State Command. We were able to intercept it and take it out of the street, take it out from circulation. Now, if you can ask, what will be the effect if we allow this drug to be on the street?
The anti-drugs agency in Katsina State says the momentum of the fight against illicit drugs and sales will increase as the country inches towards Salah festivities. Similarly, in what appears to be strange to Katsina, is the cultivation of cannabis sativa. In one of its recent operations, officers of the anti-drugs agency arrested one Masaudu from Sobashi village of the local government in Katsina State in connection with cultivation of cannabis sativa in its irrigation farm.
Before this time, as far as our records are concerned, we have never had anything like this. And not only in Katsina, the whole of the north is not known for the cultivation of cannabis sativa. But today, we were so fortunate, we were so lucky to have discovered a cannabis plantation in Katsina State.
Though the suspect Masaudu claimed ignorance of the offense, he mentioned Abdullahi Hamisu, Zaharaddin Galadima, and Abdullahi Bukari as the real owners of the suspected farm of cannabis sativa. No, the real owners of the cannabis sativa have not been arrested. I was only arrested because I was the one found on the farm. I was conscripted into the offense. This has been my business over time, but as God will have it, I was arrested with these bottles of codeine. Though I am aware of the effects of my business, I want to assure that this will be the last time I will be in the drugs business. The NDLA command in Katsina has in its custody one Bishir Saadu, who was arrested in possession of 8,000 capsules of tramadol valued at about 3 million naira only. The deputy commander of the NDLEA in Katsina, Idris Soho Usman, while parading the suspects, called on residents not to relent in providing information that would expose drugs dealers and their accomplices. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
And that's it for the headlines and, of course, reports for this hour. I'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll take a look at the front pages of the newspapers this morning. Stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a party look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us on Trust TV's Daybreak. Right now it's time for us to take a look at the front pages of the newspapers to see what's making the news this morning. So we'll start with Daily Trust newspaper and the major story on the front page: 48 hours to go, anxiety in Adamawa, Kebbi, others ahead supplementary polls. And Riders here says 36,935 voters to determine Fintiri Binani's fate and 94,209 to decide Bagudu's successor. Wamako, Tambuwal, Marafa, Bilbis, others in final battle for Senate. And the final rider expects seamless election process, according to the police. Details of that can be found on page 4. Still talking politics, governorship results, APC petitions tribunals in Kano, Plateau, Rivers. That story can be found on page 10. And IMF urges Nigeria to increase tax to cut borrowing. Military shuts Maiduguri juvenile sex brothels, and that is a story that can be found on page 8. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
And now we move to the Nation newspaper that has a lead story that says Obi lacks right to contest my victory, Tinubu tells a tribunal. The writers attached to the story says Shatima validly nominated as running mate, and an APC, Atiku, PDP can't carry president-elect's qualification. Okay, that story started on the front page, but you can get more details on page 4 in the Nation's newspaper this morning. There's a pictorial there, very, very sad one and heartbreaking. It's about the collapsed building in Lagos. Many feared trapped on the collapsed Lagos building. That story is on page 27 this morning in the Nation's newspaper. Let's take a look at the top of the newspaper. We have how Obi was detained in London by aide. He was impersonated. All right, that's page 4 there in the Nation's newspaper accommodating that story. Then newspaper of the year, G5 governors mini convention plan deepens PDP crisis. All right, page 5 has that story. And the National Stadium, Surulere, the hard fact. Once get all of the fact this morning, you can look that up in the Nation's newspaper. The bottom strip has a story like presidential poll most credible in Nigeria history. There's a rider attached to that story. It says observers reports rate beavers high, says Kiamo and others. It started on the front page, but you continue reading that story on page 4 this morning. And that's this one that talked about gunmen kidnap and kill police inspector. Okay, that story is on page 21. And then protest in OAU over killing of student. That story is in the Nation's newspaper as well. Then we have a pictorial of the president-elect and Senator Jibril Barao. Okay, you can read all about that in the Nation's newspaper. And that's pretty much what you can see in the front of the Nation this morning.
Next, we'll take a look at the Leadership newspaper. The major story is amid renewed attacks, villagers mobilize, kill 50 bandits in self-defense. And Riders here says as terrorists kill 20, abduct 32 in Niger, Kaduna. We abandoned the bodies in Kainji National Park. Details of that story can be found on page 4. Looking at some other stories on the front page of the Leadership. Diri Anyaung emerged by Elsa, Imo governorship candidates. And that is on page 22 of the Leadership. Importers to clear cargoes from Lekki port in 2 days. That is according to the MPA. And scores cheat death as 7-story building collapses in Lagos, and the accompanying pictures are there on the front page of the leadership. Talking politics now, Atiku, PDP's petition meaningless, APC tells tribunal. And talking about the economy, focus on tax, reduce debts, IMF tells Nigerian government. Moving towards the top of the front page there, how Obi was questioned, detained at Heathrow Airport, details on page 6. And we are ready for Adamawa Kebbi reruns, that is according to INEC. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the leadership newspaper. And with that, we conclude reading out the headlines at the moment. And of course, we have right here in the studio to help us analyze these stories, Nasir Lal, the editor-in-chief, Dateline Nigeria, right here. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to have you join us.
Good morning.
All right. So let's take a look at the headlines this morning. Let's look at the major story on the front page of the Daily Trust. It's talking about 48 hours to go and the supplementary elections coming up in Kebbi and Adamawa states. We saw what happened during the general elections. Are we expecting anything different?
Well, honestly, I don't think the supplementary election is going to change anything substantially. Like in the case of Adamawa, you are talking about 37 or so thousand, to decide who eventually becomes the governor. And already the PDP candidate, who is the incumbent governor of the state, is already leading with some 31,000. So if, unless you are able to get like 100% turnout and all the votes, going to the candidate of the APC, honestly, I don't see how it will be possible, to change the governor's impending victory. And the same thing in the case of Kebbi State. I think the difference is about 45 or 46,000 between the APC candidate and that of the PDP. And you also know that in the case of Kebbi, some 91,000 or so to decide. So unless we also have more than 50% turnout of the voters, honestly, I don't see anything stopping the APC candidate from, becoming the elected governor.
Okay, so before this now, we've had reports from Adamawa about how some people's life have been threatened, especially the REC, that's the returning officer of INEC from that state. And also in Kebbi State, I've seen flashes of that as well. Do you think that's going to affect the supplementary election on Saturday?
Well, it's not a good thing that the person in charge of the supplementary election is already coming under all sorts of, accusations, allegations, and what have you. But then politicians will always, you can't stop politicians from making some of these allegations. But the resident electoral commissioner, has a responsibility to do what is right, and he should know the implication, of running contrary to the dictates of the law. But I can understand, so many people are expecting Nigeria to have its first female governor, and because of that, there is so much interest in the case of Adamawa. But we just have to face the reality. If the voters in the end decide that maybe it's not yet time for a woman to become the governor in Adamawa State, then we should respect that.
We're talking about respecting what the outcome of the polls. Going into every election in Nigeria, the main issue is post-election violence, how people receive the results and the rest of it. Well, the police have come out and beat their chest and say that the elections are going to be smooth and there's not going to be any issue. Well, judging by the fact that it's going to be a controlled area and it's not like statewide as we had, do you think that will make it easier for the police to actually enforce law and order when it comes to the conduct of the election and, of course, what comes after?
Well, that's my expectation, but Nigerians, so many people will find their way to Adamawa, to Kebbi State, even though they don't have any role to play. But they will go there maybe to give, is it logistical or moral support to the candidates. And sometimes they do that just to show face, like Nigerians will say, so that by the time you have an elected governor, you can now have a case to make that I was actually there, during your election. I was, I contributed, I did this, I did that, so that it will give you some leverage when it comes to what you are maybe expecting from whoever becomes the governor. But the police also, they have a constitutional responsibility to keep the peace, whether it's during election or outside election. And sometimes just controlling movement, I don't think it changes anything in the end, because if you allow people, some will want to make trouble. But if you are there, even if it is only the visibility part of it, sometimes you can stop one or two problems from breaking out. And that's what I expect the police to do.
Okay, still looking at the Daily Trust newspaper now, one thing, or one of the headline rather, that concerns a lot of Nigeria, you and I, everybody watching right now, it's the IMF, International Monetary Fund, advising Nigeria to increase its tax rate. And that's because we could reduce our debt through that. Now, you're talking about a tax that has increased over the years. Nigeria has one of the lowest tax rates in the world. If, increasing by 0.5% and then 0.75%, and then we have all of that, incurring all of this on goods and services and everything you have to do. Now we have the fuel subsidy removal, which will take effect in no time. What do you think is going to be the resultant effect in all of this? Is it the way to go?
Well, to start with, I don't think what the IMF said is anything new, because our own Minister of Finance actually said that in one of her many interactive sessions with journalists, advising the incoming administration to, increase the tax, because in her own words, doing that will now help Nigeria to be able to make more money so that we don't have to go borrowing all the time. But this is only advisory, nobody is saying that because IMF is saying it, then you have to do it. No, you have to look at the reality. So many people are finding it difficult to even do, what you have at the moment. Even the 7.5%, so many people are complaining. And by the time you jack that up, I don't know, what...
I think the finance minister was suggesting 10%.
Yeah, she suggested 10%. But, honestly, if you look at the level of business transactions, even those that are outside, the realm of any employment, people that don't make any money, and you're expecting them to also be affected by this. Honestly, it's going to be a very serious development. But, governments, come and go. And the incoming administration, to my own expectation, they already have their own template, their own idea of how to go about, maybe sourcing money for all the projects that they may want to embark upon and things like that. But like I said, what the IMF said is only advisory. It's not like incumbent upon the government to respect that. But if that is the way to go, and then we think the benefits will outweigh all the disadvantages, then maybe we can give it a try.
Well, I think apart from the value-added tax, which seems to have generated lots more interest from all angles because of the way it's actually collected, because it's collected on goods and services and the rest of it, there are other taxes that we actually have which are not receiving the desired attention. And a lot of people actually say it's not the absence of taxes that is our problem, it's the enforcement of these taxes.
Yeah. I also believe that, because, if you can widen the tax net, because right now so many people are not paying any tax, and there is also a system whereby people are allowed to make their own projections. The FIRS will come to you, for you to give your own self-assessment, and because of that, we end up with some corrupt practices along the line. People are deliberately, reducing what they should be given to the government. And I don't know why, even in the first place, we'll allow people to do like self-assessment. Why don't you use your own staff, since you have them, you know, to be able to arrive at the exact amount that people should be paying as taxes? But you know, sometimes in our quest to generate money, like we give tax holidays, we do so many things so that like Dangote, for instance, he got some tax holiday to construct the Western Bypass in Kaduna. But why should we be doing that? I think the government should take its own responsibility seriously, so that let him just pay the taxes and then you take care of your own development. It's not his responsibility to be constructing roads here and there. It's the responsibility of the government, and it's better for the government to handle issues like this. Why should you like give him tax holiday, you know, so that he will build a road? I don't think that's the way to go. We have people that are supposed to be working. Let them do their work. Let him pay the tax, and then let the government handle all its developmental projects.
Now, how can we even do this? Because, you know, in developed countries, you hear of musicians and footballers being arrested because of accumulated tax and all of that. And I know that in this country, there are people who are earning billions of naira who are not even paying tax. I know that, you know, analysts like you or people who go through some of these things will talk about, you know, enforcement, doing this the right way, but it hasn't really yielded any results. What's the way forward? What do you think?
Well, you know, sometimes because we are still having access to some free money, that's why we have not been paying attention to all the things that we need to do. I will give you an example with one foreign, I think a retail outlet, you know, owned by, you know, they will call them foreign investors. But somehow, you know, they don't even use POS. You know, no electronic means of payment. You have to go in there with cash, and the government knows about this. Nobody is saying anything. That means, you know, they are now denying the government from knowing the actual amount of the money that they are making, because nobody will know that from their bank accounts. Maybe what they do, they end up, you know, hiding all the money, you know, in individual accounts, and the government knows this. So many outlets, they are doing that, you know, and what they will do, somehow they will bring an ATM machine very close to where they operate, so that you cannot even complain of not having the cash to transact business with them. So why should the government allow all that? Because we are still having access to, like I said, free money. Anytime we go, you know, borrowing, there are people that are willing to give us money, when in reality we are burdening the next, the upcoming generation. So why should we allow that to continue? Honestly, we should take our ability to make money very seriously, because without making this money, even the projects that we may want to execute, honestly, they may not be possible.
Well, let's go back to politics now. And right now, apart from the supplementary elections that we're looking for towards, there are governorship elections coming up in November, and as well in some states. But at the moment, we're seeing still dealing with the fallout of the general elections, and lots and lots of petitions are there in court, and they're being dealt with. We're hearing one judgment after another concerning this and that as well. How overburdening do you think this will be on our judiciary when everything comes to a head? Will the judiciary have the capacity, the Nigerian judiciary now, do we have the capacity to actually go through all these election petition tribunals and resolve them with concerning manpower and the rest of it?
Well, I think they have the capacity, but even though they can do it more certainly. But, you know, sometimes the problem is actually, I wouldn't want to say only the politicians, because you have people that are not politicians also filing cases that have to do with politics, like, what do they even call it? There is one NGO, you know, that has become very famous, you know, for taking the government to court. So sometimes when you go to court unnecessarily, you know, you are burdening the judiciary, since that right from the beginning, you know that it's not going anywhere. but you still take it to court simply because you want to maybe justify some of the fundings that you have, some of the people that are giving you money, you want to show them that, yes, I am working, and this is where, some of the funds that you have been giving me, this is where they have.
And lawyers have to eat as well.
Well, honestly, I think our judiciary has the capacity to handle, the cases before them. But like I said, we should also pity them, when we know that we don't have a very good case. That's to the lawyers. The lawyers will be able to advise their clients. It's not all the time that, you will get them to go to the court so that you make one or two money out of
I think a lot of people do not accept when you tell them ADR can actually help this matter. Let's not go to court. Some people just like court cases.
Well, maybe because even those behind the ADR hardly, make that information available to some of the people. Because if you do the alternative dispute resolution, you spend less money, even you hardly waste any time, unlike going through the process that you are not even sure of winning in the end. So if we can promote, ADR and other relevant issues, maybe we will in the end, be able to reduce the burden that our judiciary is made to.
Now let's take a look at something that bothers us. Now it happened in Lagos, but it has this ripple effect in other states as well. 7-story building collapsing in Lagos again. Well,
I saw, even though they were quoting sources, that maybe they didn't even have the permit, to do that.
But that seems to be the problem always.
No, that's what I'm trying to reach at. Because how we have government in place and then people can build, up to 7 stories without the government knowing whether
and
they
in
have,
a very highbrow area in Lagos.
Well, the problem is we have not been able to punish, to apply the appropriate sanction, to all those found wanting in the past. So things like this will continue. Anytime we talk about this, before you know it, it will fizzle out, and then nobody will talk about it again until it happens. And it keeps happening because people are not doing their, not taking their responsibilities seriously. We have government agency, responsible for things like this. Before you start any development, you have to get the permit. You have to get all the engineers, to be able to know that you are using the right materials. You are, sticking to the guidelines and all the procedures. But no, people just want to build, they want to spend less money, and then in the end, before you know it, they are coming out with all sorts of, high, exorbitant, amount as rent or what have you. So why should we allow that? In a government that, in a country that we are still complaining that so many people are without jobs, those that have the jobs are not taking them seriously. Honestly, I don't know the best way to go about this. But for the media, the media has been playing its role. The only thing they can do is to report. And then those who are responsible to take action should also be made to play their own role as well, just like the media is trying on its own part.
Well, a lot of people actually argue that even if the appropriate action is not taken, to punish the people responsible for this, at least the proper investigations should be carried out so that the people will know the causes of this. We'll just hear the buildings collapse. And after that, we'll talk about it for a few days. The next news cycle, we've forgotten about it. The main reason why the building collapsed, we don't know. Whether it's a structural issue, whether it's an issue of the materials that were used, whether it's an engineering problem or structural, we have absolutely no idea. How can we be able to make sure that these things come to light, at least so that it can serve as an eye-opener for other people who might go into this ignorantly?
Well, I think the media should keep keeping the issue on the front burner so that even if we are trying to hide it, there will be no place for such issues to be hidden. But sometimes you even find it difficult to even tell Nigerians, those that own the buildings, why is that so? Something that you should be able to go to the government registry and know those that, right now so many people have buildings. The government does not even know you know, those that have them. So how do we even get, you know, things like ground rents and what have you? How are we able to get all that if we don't even know, or if we are not even ready to start telling Nigerians that these are the people who own buildings in the country?
Yes.
If we can do this for account holders, that's bank account holders, then we should also be able to do that with all the property developers in the country. No matter the number of houses you have in the country, the people should know, okay, house number A, B, C on road A, B, C, you know, all belong to so person. That way, it will be easier for the government to know exactly the amount that such people should be paying as taxes, whether it's ground rents and other things. But right now, like I said, the government itself will be the one hiding, you know, the identities of those that own buildings that end up collapsing, and it's quite unfortunate.
It's really sad, and judging from the fact that people are still trapped in that building, and information that we're getting right now, it's not really clear whether people have lost their lives or not. You know, different newspaper reporting that some people have died, some people cheated death and all of that. But I'm sure that it will come to light and it will be clearer as we go into the day. Let's take a look at the Kogi elections now. You know, they've been in court and out, and of course there's some dissolving of committees and all of that. And this is brewing up to even the primaries now, where we have delegates, which they call the new brides, deciding the fate of some people. Yeah. Now, what's your take on what's happening before the Kogi elections?
Well, the Kogi election, I don't think it's the only one we are having this.
No, not the only one.
So,
but it seems the one that has been in court and out.
Yeah, but you also know, in all the other states, you know, things like this are actually happening. But in the case of Kogi, you can see clearly some people are trying to force their way or have their way no matter what. But I will blame the national headquarters of the APC, for allowing that to happen, because even now they are still yet to come out